And this man was in the process of dying. And his wife was there, was very worried, and was asking me, how long do you think it's going to take? And I don't know what possessed me, I said to her, at 3:00, our Lord Jesus died. It was a Friday. And believe it or not, when the church bells from the neighboring church struck 3:00, that man did his last breath.
That's pretty crazy.
Yes, and you might have scientific explanations for it, but on an emotional level, that has stuck with me.
Oh, I'm sure it did. Those type of things, whether there might be a scientific explanation for it, but at the same time, there's that whole personalization of seeing the world and explaining it that way as well. So yeah, that's pretty wild. I was actually thinking of you recently, kind of sort of on that topic of spirituality. I'm reading some Paul Tillich.
Ah,
and
okay.
He has some interesting phrases. Speaking of when you were mentioning, on the one hand, you could argue for the atheist side of things as well as Hitchens on the stage, but at the same time, you've seen this certain type of spirituality. And he actually has some statement saying that God is always that which precedes the subject-object relationship, and that because people operate and think and talk about God, but at the same time, he should always be that which precedes that subject-object relationship, that there's this blasphemous theology that's arisen as trying to defend the existence of God. And he says that rationally, the Christian response should be atheism to this type of rational defense of God. So Tillich, it's always this, God is always this ground of, God is, I think he says, like the ground of being. It's always that which precedes any being, and being is always that, this, when we experience the world, it's us as a subject experiencing things as objects, but God for him is always this thing that precedes, which is kind of similar. I've thought of you before that's kind of getting out of that dialectic or dichotomy between atheism and theism.
Yes. And as you know, my way of getting out of that hamster wheel was looking at the Eastern Church tradition, particularly the school following in the footsteps of St. John Chrysostom, thinking of Dionysius the Areopagite and Gregorius Palamas, and they emphasized that they called themselves agnostic, or actually the true knowledge of God they called agnosia. Yeah, so knowing that God is unknowable and unprovable, and that if a celestial figure came down in light and claimed to be God, that would at the most be an angel, because the essence of God is hidden beyond our knowledge. And that is a very old Christian idea put forward already by Clement of Alexandria. And all our dogmas about the Trinity and the two natures of Christ only really make sense if you see it against that sort of fundamental theology, which in turn goes back to Philo of Alexandria, to the Hellenistic Jews,